good times and in bad. We are only as strong as we are united. Our power to change lives comes from working together, learning together, sharing together. We will care for the generation who cared for us. And we will do it together.
Sometimes in my life, we all have pain, we all have sorrows, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, I'll be your friend, I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride. If you have things you need to borrow, for no one can feel those of your needs that you won't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. You just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Hey, hey. Come on, y'all, we're gonna be leaning on each other during this time. Hey. Come on, yeah. Oh, lean on, yeah. Come on, lean on. Lean on. Come on, lean on. Lean on. Lean on. You won't have to worry. Lean on. Come on and lean on. Lean on. Lean on. Lean on. Lean on.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second annual NCOA Age+Action Conference. I'm Jim Nickman, the interim CEO of NCOA and the board chair. NCOA is so pleased to have all of you with us virtually during these unprecedented times. There are over 1,400 people attending the 4-day event, and that's 300 more than last year. I believe this large attendance reflects the vibrancy of the professional community focused on improving the lives of adults in America, older adults in America. Although we cannot be together physically, we at NCOA felt it was so important that we still be able to be together professionally. COVID-19 has been a terror for elders. As you saw in these two inspiring opening videos, we believe that working together and leaning on each other is what will enable us to help older adults get through this difficult period in our nation's history. And it also will help us learn to be better prepared for challenges like this one in the future. The terrible death of George Floyd in Minneapolis and the protests of the past several weeks, which have focused our attention on systemic racism and persistent inequity, heighten the roles we all need to play in America to make it the nation we expect and want it to be. The fallout of racism and inequity affects older adults in our nation as much as it affects the young and working age populations. Now more than ever, we need to come together and learn from each other about how we can tackle these challenges. So we are pleased we have been able to keep this conference happening as a virtual event during this time of COVID-19. What continues to unite us is a shared desire to improve the lives of every adult, older adult, especially those who are struggling. Today, that mission has never been more important. And for all of your efforts in your communities around the country, I thank you. We know how committed you are, and we are committed to you. We have worked hard to make this event educational, inspirational, and interactive. And our goal is for all of us to offer the very best ideas to serve older adults in your communities and to spur you to think about your priorities and special contributions related to the goal of helping everyone age well in America. This morning, during this opening session, we will be honoring our 2020 Trailblazers in Aging Award honorees, and we have a great keynote feature featuring Dr. Joseph Coughlin. But first, I would like to thank our sponsors for helping us make this conference possible, and they include Amgen, Fresh Baby, Lyft, and Sanofi Genzyme. We greatly appreciate your support. We also have over 30 exhibitors in our virtual expo hall that I hope you will all visit over the next few days. To make it a little bit more fun, we also will have a scavenger hunt and some prizes to go along with it as part of your visit to the virtual hall. So please take some time and stop by that. Now, I would like to share a special welcome for someone you might remember from last year's conference. Senator Bob Casey of Pennsylvania actually was one of our Trailblazers in Aging Champion Award last year. And since then, he has once again shown himself to be a leading advocate for older Americans. Senator Casey led efforts to include several important provisions in the recent Older American Act reauthorization. He helped to issue a Senate Aging Committee report on falls prevention. He worked to improve policies to protect older adults during the pandemic, and he continues to lead efforts to strengthen access to Medicaid, home and community-based services. Senator Casey sent us this welcome message recorded just for you.
I want to thank the National Council on Aging for this invitation to speak to you, and I want to commend and salute the work of NCOA in doing everything you can, year in and year out, to help our seniors, but especially at this time when we're facing the worst public health crisis in more than a century. The good news for seniors is that NCOA has responded by making sure that you're strong advocates, especially in Washington. It's one reason why there's $1 billion more to help seniors in both the CARES Act and the Families First Act. But much more has to be done. The White House has to do more, the administration has to do more, and the Congress has to do more. I don't want to hear anyone in Washington saying that we're done legislating, dealing with the public health and economic crisis, or that we're done appropriating dollars. We have a long way to go, and we have to be responsive, the Congress and the administration. We've got to do a couple things to help our seniors. We need to have more opportunities for groceries to be delivered for food insecure seniors. We don't have a national network to do that, unfortunately, and there's a lot more work to be done. And the Congress has to respond to that food insecurity challenge all throughout our nation. Certainly, we have to be responsive to and have a strategy, a plan to deal with what's happened in our nursing homes. Too many of our aging loved ones in long-term care settings have contracted the virus and have in fact died. Tens and tens of thousands have died in our long-term care settings. We have to do more. We have to do more to fund strategies at work, like cohorting and surging medical teams for nursing homes, and make sure that there's transparency about what's happening there. There's no question that more seniors need access to services in their homes. And that, as well as the long-term care setting, means more personal protective equipment for the workers. We've got to make sure that workers in both settings, the home or the residential setting, have personal protective equipment and lots more testing. So we have a long way to go. More dollars to appropriate, more strategies to help our seniors. But none of this will happen unless we have your voice, unless we have your help. And that means making sure that you stay in the business of contacting leaders and members of both houses and both parties in Washington to make sure we have the needed resources. We don't have the resources currently right now to do what I've just outlined and to do even more. We have to appropriate more, and we have to legislate more. And we need your help. We need your strong, determined voice. So I look forward to working with you to help our seniors through this crisis and on any other priority that you have. God bless your work. Thanks for being so good to our seniors and our aging loved ones in our families.
Thank you remotely, Senator Casey, for your message, your support, and your tireless dedication to older Americans. Now we would like to recognize the honorees of our 2020 Trailblazers in Aging Awards. These awards honor individuals and organizations that are committed to ensuring that every older adult in our nation has the resources to age well. We will turn to another video for a look at this year's recipients.
Tim Getty has over a decade of experience working at the Iowa Area Agency on Aging. When the congregate meal program's participation declined 74% in 6 years, Tim led an innovative project titled the Encore Cafe. This pop-up cafe provides a salad bar, choice menu, table service, evidence-based health programming, and produce boxes in partnership with local food banks. Before the project, Lynn County served 35 participants. Within 2 years of implementation, the project served over 1,200 participants and over 17,000 meals. Amanda Lee founded Happy 50 Plus in 2018. It is a socially conscious and consumer-centric membership organization that helps 2,500 underserved older adult Chinese American and Asian American Pacific Islander persons in Southern California. Through Happy 50 Plus's online and in-person culturally competent activities, Amanda has successfully engaged this hard-to-reach population and has been making a positive impact on the lives of older Chinese Americans and Asian American Pacific Islanders in Los Angeles County, as well as their families and caregivers. Jill Hall, Chief of the Senior Centers and Community Services Division at the Baltimore County Department of Aging. She has been a community, state, and national senior center leader for more than 22 years. Jill currently leads a division of 20 senior centers, many of which have been nationally accredited by NCOA. Jill has served on the executive committee of NCOA's National Institute of Senior Centers for the past 8 years. During that time, she developed and led its Programs of Excellence Awards. This month, Jill will become the NISC Chair-elect. David Stevens is Executive Director of the Massachusetts Councils on Aging. David is an exceptional planner, visionary, lobbyist, and advocate. During his tenure at MCOA, it has grown from an agency with 1 telephone and 2 staff members to a multi-department organization on the leading edge of Massachusetts elder programming. David's advocacy has recently led to the creation of elder mental health outreach teams, David is adept at bringing agencies together to solve problems and arrive at consensus. He has worked with NCOA on many projects, including making the Aging Mastery Program and Benefits Checkup available to every senior center in the Commonwealth. Servicios de la Raza, Services of the People in Denver, Colorado. For over 40 years, Servicios de la Raza has offered culturally responsive and thoughtful programs to support older adults, their caregivers, and their families. For many, it is the lifeblood of the Latinx community in Denver, standing up against intolerance and discriminatory policies and regulations. Servicios continues to move forward through the uncertainties of the COVID-19 pandemic while shining a light on those impacted the most by its social and economic challenges.
What special people. Please join me in giving a virtual round of applause to all of this year's award recipients. Each of them is incredibly inspiring. I now have the distinct pleasure of welcoming our Age in Action keynote speaker, Dr. Joe Coughlin. Dr. Coughlin leads the MIT AgeLab, which strives to invent new ideas and creatively translate technology to improve people's health and how they age. A researcher, author, teacher, speaker, and advisor, Joe explores how global demographics, technology, and changing generational behaviors are transforming business and society. He teaches at MIT's distinguished Department of Urban Studies and Planning and in the Sloan School's Advanced Management Program. Joe's latest book, The Longevity Economy, which I actually have just finished and is excellent, provides the framing and insight business leaders need to excite the fastest growing market across the globe. And that's the vast, diverse group of consumers representing every possible level of health and wealth among the elderly. This set of elders globally is worth $8 trillion to the United States economy alone. Dr. Coughlin is also a senior contributor to Forbes and frequently writes for the Wall Street Journal, Market Watch, and the Washington Post, and other leading outlets. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Coughlin as he discusses his vision on longevity and aging as the new endless frontier.
Jim, thank you so much for having me. It is indeed a privilege to be with everyone at NCOA. You do the hard work. Those of us that are researchers get to see the future, perhaps in many cases invent the future. But in these, shall we say, interesting times, I am privileged to be with you today, to have you take a moment to think about what you're doing today and how we can take action, not just to live longer, but ultimately our goal, that new frontier, is to live longer and indeed better. I can't have any content or any presentation that I could give to you today without the valuable help and insight of my team. So although some of them may be listening, I want you all to know that my students, my researchers, the faculty that I work with power my content today, but I'm hoping that you will take away some insights to translate that thinking, perhaps that vision or hallucination, depending on your level of kindness, into action. But first, I want to talk, and I want to start with a story. Not just a story yet, but about stories in general. I want you to think about this. Yes, I'm sitting here at MIT, where technology is often seen as the answer, but sometimes not a complete one. The oldest technology in the world, in fact, the most powerful, is the story itself. You see, the story helps us make sense of the world. Why we do certain things, why we don't do certain things, what is possible, what is impossible. And I want to have you think about this. In the recent weeks with the pandemic and whatnot, the stories that have been around us have been accelerated. The promise of technology, the promise of how we can deliver services from the home, the promise of connecting with high tech when high touch is not available. All of that is possible. All of it has great potential. And some of it has some questions as well. And I want to make sure that we touch on those. But I also want to talk about the original story that brings us all together today. The story of old age. And yes, old age is a story. And here's the new words I want you to think about. Old age is actually made up. I want you to imagine this, that the British medical community in the mid-1800s had this vision that basically we were all imbued with a certain amount of vital force or vital energy. So much like a glass of water, we were filled with a glass of water, and as we got older, as we used it and drank it, which, by the way, as we used that vital force up, which meant doing anything fun or good, we would become depleted. We'd become more empty, if you will. And what happens when you lose energy? You got it. You become tired. And this whole philosophy left British Medical Society and went across the world, particularly here in North America. And so as we would use that energy and become more tired, we created institutions, words, and beliefs around old age. You see, if you become tired, eventually you would have to what? You got it. You would have to retire. And we would take these retired people that if they did not work, particularly then, they did not make income, so they were naturally the largest chunk of who was poor. So suddenly, if you retired, you moved to poorhouses. And guess what those poorhouses turned into over time? The poorhouses are alms homes turned into nursing homes. And nursing homes eventually led to funeral homes. Not to be dour, but I want to show you how a story that we know not to be true actually created institutions, language, and beliefs that we don't even question anymore. To the point where old age, something we've always wanted to live longer, has turned into what many is calling a global crisis. Rather than a opportunity to be one, we have managed to define older age into a problem to be solved. And the trouble is, that mindset, if you will, has been used by industry, some of the greatest innovators, smart people, to invent the future of old age to not be very pleasant. Imagine this. Heinz Foods, very smart company, everything from ketchup to baby food and the like, many years ago came out with, you ready for this? Senior foods. It was taking essentially a baby food and making it for older adults because in their mind, older adults had no teeth, and apparently no taste, and needless to say, that product crashed and burned. Many of you are personally aware of personal emergency response systems, or social alarms, as they're called in Europe. The help by phone, can't get up system is what most of us know. But you can imagine this. Studies show that only 30% of people 75 years old and older consider themselves old. But we know that 100% of the people who use help by phone, can't get up, are feeling much, much older. But here's the thing. Less than 5% of the frail 65 plus who need these systems actually adopt them. And we know that they are relatively affordable. We know that they are easy to use and understand. And even if you believe that they are very expensive, and in many cases they may be, in the UK, where they are paid for 100% by the National Health Service, the penetration rate only goes up to 12%. We know particularly in recent times that senior housing is under a massive, massive pressure point right now because even before the pandemic, they were watching their census numbers go down. You see, we were building an old age for our story of old age written many, many decades ago. It is time to take action. We can do better. We can make living longer better. We do not need to make every device usable by making it so large that it looks more like a self-defense device rather than a television remote control. Older adults need to do more things than blood pressure and pill reminder systems. How about the F word? Not that word. Fun. We never think about fun in old age, do we? But let me give you another story, one that inspired me to start the AgeLab nearly 20 years ago. Sarah Noss, a native Pennsylvanian, on her 119th birthday, was asked, if you can imagine the chutzpah of a journalist asking her this, Ms. Noss, why do you enjoy living so long? And she came back with an answer better than any policymaker, any researcher, engineer, doctor, or aging specialist. She said, I enjoy living long or longer because I have my health and I can do things. Look, no one promised that you're going to get out alive, and no one promised that you were not going to have several chronic conditions. But the challenge of living longer and better, the endless frontier of longevity, is about quality of life. And the pandemic, the curse that it is, has left us with one good thing. It has accelerated technology and services that were always on the horizon into our lives today. So let me give you some visions as to how this may change and how old age is going to have many challenges, all of them that you are addressing today. But I want to also give you some hope in terms of what the technology and innovation might be in the near term to make this possible. But the first thing is, many of us take this for granted, or we don't even think about it. Old age is a lot longer than we think. Let me do some math with you for a moment. Do you know that from 0 to 21 years old is roughly 8,000 days? Do you know, and by the way, if it makes it easier for you, that's 0 to drinking age. And from 21 to midlife crisis, late-ish 40s, is about 8,000 days. And I bet you closet actuaries out there are starting to get the algorithm now. From midlife crisis to 65, yep, 8,000 days. But here's what we don't think about. From 65 to a little bit change over age 85, where nearly 50% or 52%, depending on whose numbers you look at, will make it to 85 and more. Guess what? That's another 8,000 days. Ladies and gentlemen, the NCOA is not seeking just action for making aging better. We are inventing, if you will, 1/3 of adult life. We'll take the 0 to 21 and we'll put that off to the side. We now need to envision new rituals, new myths, new technologies, new services, new ways to live longer and indeed better. And how are we going to do that? Let's start at the beginning of older age. Let's talk about how retirement is now looking a lot more like work. I remember interviewing, yes, I did, a tarot card reader in New Orleans. I thought it was fun. I was wandering through town, and I finally sat down to have my future read with the sole purpose of them turning to her and saying, so tell me about your future. Older woman, what are you going to be doing in retirement and old age? And her comment was, you're looking at it. For many of us, at least 30% of us in the United States have reported we plan to work until we drop. In part, yes, it's about money, but it's also about meaning. You have to have a reason to get up in the morning. And in part, it's about social connection. We spend more time with the people we work with quite often than we ever planned on our families. So old age actually may begin not just with retirement, but a future of work where it changes. And what did the pandemic do? It put our kids and my students and grad students online via Zoom or many other platforms. But you know what else it did? It made it possible for a life where school is never out. The ability to refresh, to renew, to change careers, not just once or twice, but perhaps many times, making it possible, if you will, to work from home, learn from home, if indeed necessary. Now, this is not going to help everyone who works, especially those who genuinely work for a living, that is with their bodies, but it might give us a chance to be able to extend what we call living at work. How about illness and managing our daily health and whatnot? Yep, telemedicine has been around. You ready for this? There was an article in The Lancet in the late 1800s, talking about how this thing, the telephone, might be used for cardiology patients. Bottom line is that telemedicine has been around for a century. It is finally becoming called, you ready for this? Just medicine. It is now becoming the new norm. We have technologies that are moving into our homes that are making it possible to manage, monitor, and motivate our health behaviors. Smart refrigerators, smart devices, whatever they might be. We have to start asking ourselves in the future of old age, where are we going to choose to live? Or where will we choose to stay? 70% of Americans 70% of Americans over age 50 live in suburban and rural areas. often where the services that you provide are hard to deliver because of distance, or in many cases don't even exist at all. 87% of us say that by the time we're in our 50s, we wish to age in place where our marriage, our mortgage, and our memories are. That is the home that we're in. Even those who are moving, they're not moving to the big city. They're not moving to the beach or golf courses if they can afford that. In fact, where they're moving are small town America, small cities. This is where people like you are going to have to build up new capacities, new technology, and indeed new funding. But wherever we live, we're going to have to change our light bulbs. What are the services we're going to be able to have to age in place? Changing light bulbs, taking out the trash. But there are hopes for this. Yes, there's the village-to-village movement where communities come together to create, if you will, virtual assisted living. But that lifestyle made for millennials, that is life by app, for everything from doing your laundry to changing light bulbs for companies like TaskRabbit, Hello Alfred, and maybe a life that was made for millennials. But guess what? A lot of boomers and silent generations like it too. And in many cases, adult children make it affordable. In many cases, I'll come back to this in a moment, you may need to team with them to create a whole new partnership. Here's a question you don't often think about in older age. How will you get an ice cream cone? Think about it. Older age, to live longer and better, is about understanding the little things that make you smile. In my case, ice cream is a food group. But do you live where you can get to those little things that make you smile? Are you near places that give you that little momentary joy from reading the newspaper, a cup of coffee, ice cream, whatever it might be? But guess what? It also begs the following question that all of you know is a critical issue. It always is top 5 on every White House conference on aging and in every survey. Yes, you got it. Transportation. How do you get there? Driving, for most of us, is the number 1 way we get around. The number 2 way is riding with someone who does drive. We need to rethink the car. We need to rethink our communities to have the intensity, density, and accessibility so that we can not just age in place, but we can remain mobile to get to those things that are important to us. For the driverless car, many of my team are working on that. It's coming, but with mixed metaphor intended, it's down the road. I'm not going to be waiting for it anytime soon. So transportation services, paratransit services that many of you provide and are integral into getting out there on the road are going to remain important. But this does not stop us from rethinking public transportation either, making it better, making it seamless, making it safe, making it easy to use. How about this question in old age? Who are you going to have lunch with? Yes, before the pandemic, the epidemic was loneliness. And we know that loneliness, no matter your income strata, is the equivalent of smoking 11 to 15 cigarettes per day. Loneliness kills. It leads to mental health issues, physical health issues, and the like. And here's the kicker. While many of us look to rural America and we see all those people out in the countryside that are by themselves, we find that in urban America, people are equally lonely. Just because you're in a high rise with 1,000 other people does not necessarily mean that you know the person that is in apartment 10H or that you took the time to knock on the door to see if they are okay. There are new technologies that are bringing us together, whether it's video games. One of the highest growing group of people is doing video games as groups, believe it or not, are older adults. There's even something out there called Wii Wrist and Wii Elbow because older adults in senior centers from UK to Australia and here in the United States are blowing out ligaments and whatnot for playing with such verve so they can get placed on the Wii Virtual Bowling League. But high tech will never replace high touch. So loneliness is something that we must deal on a community level overall. But another question is, how are you going to provide care? Because in that 8,000 days of older age, we may start out, shall we say, in a honeymoon phase of somewhat wanting to do those things that we've made the list. And as we progress, we have to start thinking more and more practically. Well, there's an entirely new class, if you will, of older adult needing caregiver. Think about the people who never had children at all. In fact, the birth rate around the world is plummeting. Here in the United States, by 2034, there will be more adults over age 60 than there will be children. Think of the people out there that never married. Think about the people out there that are divorced and living separately alone. In fact, the highest divorce rate in the United States and much of the world is amongst the 50 plus, the so-called great divorce. Double income, no kids. Bottom line is the number one way we aged well was not exercising, not nutrition, frankly, not even aging services, with all deference to all of you. We relied on family. And now our family has moved, we didn't have them, or due to divorce, they're not talking to us. So one of the things we have to start thinking about, are there other services out there that can replace, and all of you know this, the number one caregiver, the oldest adult daughter? What do we do to help her, and if she's at a distance, or if she doesn't exist? So we're now looking at a whole new range of services that are out there. Again, those services that are out there for convenience, such as meal delivery, convenient meal kits, having places cleaned by app. Companies like Honor that were started to have home care delivered much the way that Lyft or Uber can be called on an app. But major companies from Amazon to Best Buy to pharmaceutical companies are getting into the act, if you will, of providing services, not just molecules and products. How are these folks going to become new partners for you? So let me conclude on what I think the future of age and action, what all of you have done so well with so few resources, but with a passion and commitment that is second to none. The future of age and action, the future of the new longevity frontier is going to be built on new ideas around partnerships, new ideas around technology-enabled programs, and new thinking around the people like you that provide care. First, think about the number of companies that are out there in private nonprofit organizations that are doing innovative things. Major hospitals that are providing Parkinson's and Alzheimer's care remotely. I have a cousin who has been receiving Parkinson's therapy from a leading hospital in Maryland, but she lives in upstate New York on the Canadian border. Think about the pharmaceutical companies, the grocery stores, from Publix to Novo Nordisk to Sanofi Aventis to Walgreens, that are now providing a variety of services either in the store or remotely. But before any of you get too excited about this new power of service partnership that you need to have to improve your logistics, to leverage your care, to access people that are difficult to access because you're too short on resources, before we get terribly excited about that, I want you to think about access and equity. All of these things start out expensive. Do they have access to the digital services that they will need, older adults? Can they afford them? As a matter of public policy, how do we ensure equitable access to the very things that give us the right and access to health, transportation, living longer, and indeed better? Tech-enabled programs are part of taking action for that new future. I want you to think about this. The number one thing we saw during the beginning of the COVID epidemic or pandemic, we made fun of people, and I was one of them, who went out and bought toilet paper. Well, my team at the AgeLab has been doing studies since the pandemic started. Guess what else was bought in large numbers by middle-aged caregivers and older adults? You got it. Technology. You see, technology has become the new toilet paper. It is a way of taking control. It is a way of remaining connected. It is a way of being able to muddle through in difficult times. So how do we start thinking about, say, the home no longer is simply a place to live, but as a platform for service, where technologies bring in care providers, new ways of connecting, new ways of monitoring, managing, and motivating older adults to stay well and healthy? Your role, you don't have to be a tech expert, but you're going to have to help people who don't understand how to use these technologies. Where do they find it? What are the trusted technology service providers? Where do they come in? How do they get installed? How do they get maintained? These are new challenges for the aging services community. And new vulnerabilities. What if grandma gets hacked? How does her privacy get protected? How do all those devices that are meant to protect her don't get, shall we say, hacked in a way that make her have bad behaviors, such as not taking her meds on time or taking too many of them? Finally, let me conclude on people, all of you. What does the next generation aging service provider look like? What are we looking at the future? We are looking at the new next generation aging service provider is certainly going to have to be tech savvy. One part social worker, one part medical, clinical, but now technology permeates everything. We can't leave it to the engineers. We must have more there. How do you advise families on providing things in the home? You're going to have new skills. Many of you are amazing innovators out there. I've visited many COAs and the like and councils across the country and indeed the world. But forming partnerships and maintaining those partnerships overall. These are new skill sets that we have not put into the curricula that most people take when they choose to go into aging services. So let me conclude on the final. You know, architects like to talk about when they build skyscrapers, people look at these buildings as amazing testaments to math, to engineering, to the finance that goes beyond them. But skyscrapers are also thought of as, shall we say, monuments of optimism, of hope to the future. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you this. I want the Age and Action meeting for this week, not just to be a moment, but a movement on how we look at longevity is to be about living longer and better. We want old age not to be a problem to be solved, but an opportunity to be realized. Let's build a skyscraper. Let's build a new cathedral of hope in terms of how we look at old age, how we provide care, and we prepare for something that ultimately, with any luck, all of us become part of. If I may ask for the last slide to be queued up, I'd appreciate it. I do need your help, and NCOA has been kind enough to allow me to ask you. My team at the AgeLab is trying to create the largest worldwide panel of caregivers. If you have a moment, feel free to email me, or if you go online there, to find caregivers that are out there that you know begin with, hey, Dad, how are you doing? All the way to the most serious, to even those who are no longer caregiving. We are looking to understand the micro moments of how people provide care, what they need, so that we can develop the technologies, the products, the services, the experiences, and inform the public policies to help all of us live longer, better. So please help us out. Join CareHive. Jim, it's been a great delight. And if we have time for questions, I'd be delighted to take them. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. That was excellent and inspiring, Joe. And we do have like almost 10 minutes for questions, so I'll ask a few that came up as you went along. It was a great speech. It's great to come up with this quantification of saying 8,000 days. You know, it's 1/3 of life is in this third phase, and such an important, vibrant phase of each of our lives. So when you think about all the things you say business is doing and technology is doing, are these the exception or the rule? Do enough of businesses in America realize the potential of the senior market? And should organizations like NCOA and others at this conference be playing more of a lobbying or pushing role to say the American economy, the American businesses have to take seniors more seriously in their economic plans?
I wish, Jim, I could tell you that business is taking it seriously. You would think, to be crass, that's where the money is, and you would think that they would naturally gravitate toward it. Unfortunately, they do not. Even though they make up in the United States, the 50 plus, if we want to call older age 50 and older, make up 70% of the disposable spend. Sadly, they make up only less than 2% of the advertising dollars of people trying to talk to us. NCOA has a tradition of being a proud advocate. And I would say that all of you should continue to advocate to put aging on the agenda of corporates, of public, of nonprofits, as well as government. But make sure that it's more than just making sure that we take our medication and we have our blood pressure checked and that our nutrition services are delivered. Those are all vitally important. But let's not forget about social connection, having fun, new experiences, learning about things in old age. It's up to us to invent what those last 8,000 days will be.
Great, great. So you talked a lot about the private sector, less about government. And, you know, it's interesting. There are so many people walking around saying, oh, aging is going to destroy America. It's going to ruin our economy. We can't afford it. And we keep ignoring solving the problem of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. We cut taxes, and then you wonder, you know, what's going to happen as we have these expenditures. You know, I've done some research that says we can afford aging easily. We just have to move money around. It's some ways a technical problem. As you noted, children are increasing at much lower rates than the working age population or the senior population. So there's resources, you just have to move them in a macroeconomic sense. Do we have the ability to do this as a nation, to to say we really need to start now to rethink how we allocate resources for seniors.
Absolutely. We certainly have the ability. The question is whether we have the will. It is about agenda setting. We know that public policy and government, if you will, has a very limited agenda as to what they want to give attention to and what they want to pay for. It is up to us as aging advocates to redefine this, not just about we need to help them. Think about it. Aging is the only class that, with any luck, all of us become part of. I have been so annoyed by many that are in government and many who have stepped out of government saying, well, by 74, I will have lived all I have lived, loved all I can love, and I'm done. Let me ask a question. When they're 73, call me and see if that's what they think when 74 is coming. No, we need to put aging on the agenda, not every 10 years at the White House Conference on Aging. But this is about quality of life for 100 years. It is about all of us.
So I have one question personally I've been interested in. You know, all the new technologies in medical care, a lot of them could really extend life and improve well-being during life. But a lot of them have a prevention type of twist to them. So, you know, if we get the ability to tweak genes so it lowers your risk of having a heart attack, that could be looked at as a prevention activity and not funded by our medical care insurance or Medicare or whatever. Are we going to live a life where wealthy people can do things that make them live 10 years longer in a healthy state than non-wealthy people? Or will we figure out that we have to add these things to insurance plans?
No, absolutely. There is, I mentioned in my talk, there is a vital equity problem that we are facing. Technology begins out of the box, if you will, inordinately expensive. Those diagnostics, those treatments that you were talking about as well. Over time, much like the price of telephones and our personal computers, those things come down. But we do need to have government and nonprofits and business think about ways of making those cheaper for all. Not just because it's fair, not just because it's good public policy, but if we change the discussion from aging to longevity, it will save us all money in the end to have people that can live longer, better, cheaper, and by the way, work longer as they wish.
That's great. Okay, well, I'm going to end it there. This was great, Joe. I mean, you've gotten us off to a start. You've gotten us all thinking and excited. And I think the next 4 days will include much, much more of that. And I really appreciate your taking the effort to be a part of that.
Jim, thanks for having me. And thanks to all of your members for doing what they do every day. Take care.
Great. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay, well, we have yet one more video, a very special video to close this session. But before that, I want to do a few housekeeping items so we make sure we can make our way through this high technology conference. First, you should know that there is technical support available if you are having any difficulties with the conference platform. Simply click on the Tech Support tab on the homepage of the virtual platform where you logged in to get started. And the tech folks here are really capable and creative. Second, if you haven't done so already, please download the conference mobile app. It's incredibly easy to use and makes all the information about what's happening over the next 4 days easy to follow. Again, you can get that instructions for downloading it on the homepage of the virtual platform. Again, it's very easy to download it. Even I did it. The app is also where you can rate the sessions and speakers, chat with our other attendees, build your own agenda, and much more. So I hope you can use that app as you go along. Also, please follow us and the conference on Twitter, and be sure to use the hashtag #AgeAction when you tweet. Okay, so I'd like to close the session now with a truly touching musical performance this time. This one features beautiful photos from our first ever NCOA photo contest. You can see all the winners in the photo gallery. Again, you can find that on the homepage. And both the musical videos we're sharing this morning feature Christian Davis, a native of Northern Virginia. Christian is a musician, a singer, and a songwriter. And after some successful years singing with her former group, Chosen Royalty, she had a new vision to join like-minded people to sing together. Just Say Yes was formed and features artists from different areas of Northern Virginia. We know you'll enjoy the performance just as much as the first one. When the video ends, you can go back to the agenda on the conference homepage to find your next session, which will begin promptly at 11 a.m. So thank you and enjoy the conference. Be well.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed days, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? Hey, they're really saying, I hear babies cry, I watch them grow, they'll learn much more than you and I'll never know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself,